The Cuy'val Dar were 100 men and women personally assembled by Mandalorian bounty hunter Jango Fett, and brought to the remote ocean world of Kamino to prepare the Grand Army of the Republic for war. 75 of them were Mandalorians, like Fett himself. In the Mandalorian language, Cuy'val Dar meant those who no longer exist, a fitting name for individuals who were required to vanish from the known galaxy, severing outside contact to preserve the secrecy of the Republic's growing clone army. For nearly a decade, these 100 training sergeants worked in isolation, forging clone soldiers into elite professionals. Their tasks remained hidden until 22 BBY, when the military deployed during the Battle of Geonosis, the opening clash of the Clone Wars.
You are listening to the Star Lores Podcast.
I find your lack of faith disturbing.
Are you stuck-up, half-witted, scruffy-looking nerf herder?
But I was going into Tashi Station to pick up some power converters.
Selection.
In 32 BBY, Count Dooku persuaded the Mandalorian bounty hunter Jango Fett to serve as the genetic template for his clone army, being developed on Kamino. Fett, a veteran warrior with extensive combat experience, understood that a truly effective military force could not rely on conventional soldiers alone. It would also need specialists capable of carrying out the most demanding and dangerous missions. To create those elite troops, Fett assembled a cadre of instructors from across the galaxy. They were soldiers, trackers, survival experts, communications specialists, and combat professionals drawn from a wide range of backgrounds. 100 men and women answered the call. 75 of them were Mandalorians like Fett himself, but all were selected for the skills and experience they could pass on to the Republic's future commandos. The trainers were required to abandon their former lives and disappear into the secrecy of Kamino for an indefinite period. Cut off from the wider galaxy and forbidden from maintaining outside contact, they vanished so completely that many were presumed dead or missing in action. Families, friends, and former comrades were left without explanation, while the Cuy'val Dar devoted themselves to a task few beyond Kamino's oceans even knew existed: preparing an army in secret for a war that had yet to begin.
Training.
Many of the individuals who answered Fett's call came from professions that sat on the fringes of respectable Republic society. Bounty hunters, mercenaries, assassins, and career soldiers were well represented among the Cuy'val Dar. In another context, few would have imagined such people entrusted with shaping the future defenders of the Republic. Yet on Kamino, past reputations mattered less than expertise. What united the Cuy'val Dar was not who they had been, but what they could teach. Once a training program was fully established, these hand-picked instructors assumed responsibility for transforming raw clone cadets into elite commandos. Around 30 BBY, each Cuy'val Dar sergeant, aside from Jango Fett himself, was assigned a company of 104 cadets. Fett reserved a different task for himself, personally overseeing the training of the 100 Alpha-class Advanced Recon Commandos, a group intended to serve as some of the Army's most capable and independent soldiers. The Clone Commandos' education extended beyond the boundaries of any single training company. Although every cadet had an assigned instructor, the Cuy'val Dar operated as a collective, sharing their specialized knowledge across the entire program. This allowed the commandos to learn from experts whose skills had been forged in vastly different corners of the galaxy. Among them was Mij Gilamar, a Mandalorian warrior whose expertise extended beyond the battlefield. A trained physician as well as soldier, Gilamar taught the commandos the demanding responsibilities of combat medicine, ensuring they could preserve lives as effectively as they could take them. Another Mandalorian instructor, Kal Skirata, brought a reputation as a ruthless and unconventional fighter, drawing on years of practical experience. He instructed the clones to counterinsurgency, tactics, and the realities of irregular warfare. Lat Ward contributed a different perspective. A student of military history as much as a practitioner of war, Ward had devoted himself to studying the campaigns of legendary Mandalorian commanders. He carried those lessons with him to Kamino, using historical battles and the successes and failures of past leaders to teach combat skills and battlefield decision-making. Through instructors like Ward, the commandos learned not only how to fight, but how generations of warriors before them had approached the art of war. Together, the Cuy'val Dar offered something no standardized training regimen could replicate: a century's worth of hard-earned experience drawn from 100 different lives. The clone commanders were bred from a single template, but the men and women training them ensured they would be shaped by a far broader range of knowledge and perspectives.
Culture.
Over time, the influence of the Cuy'val Dar extended well beyond weapons drills, tactical exercises, and battlefield instruction. The commandos were created from a common genetic template, but they were raised by 100 different mentors. As a result, many emerged from training carrying not only the skills of their instructors, but pieces of their personalities, values, and cultures as well. No two trainers embodied this reality more clearly than Walon Vau and Kal Skirata. Vau believed survival was the ultimate measure of a soldier's worth. His training methods were notoriously harsh, designed to strip away weakness and force his commandos to confront adversity before ever setting foot on a battlefield. He sought to cultivate instinctive survivors, men capable of enduring the worst conditions imaginable. The results appeared to validate his philosophy. Commandos trained by Vau consistently posted the highest survival rates following their often devastating first deployments. Yet the effectiveness of his methods did not guarantee affection. Members of Delta Squad ultimately came to appreciate the lessons Vau had taught them, but RC-3222, known as Atin, never forgave the brutality that defined his training and developed a deep hatred of his instructor. Skirata approached the same mission from a different direction. He demanded discipline and competence no less than Vau, but coupled those expectations with encouragement and genuine personal investment. Rather than viewing the clones as products of a military program, he treated them as sons. Rav Bralor adopted a similar attitude toward the commandos under her care, and in both cases, the clones responded with loyalty and affection that resembled family bonds more than the relationship between instructor and trainee. The cultural impact of the Cuy'val Dar proved just as significant as their military instruction. Nearly all of the Mandalorian sergeants taught their commandos about the heritage of Jango Fett, introducing them to the Mandalorian customs, language, and traditions. Many clones embraced that heritage enthusiastically, finding in it a sense of identity that the Kaminoan cloning process had never intended to provide. The phenomenon was not limited to Mandalorian instructors. Commandos trained by Corellians often adopted Corellian mannerisms and cultural traits, while those instructed by natives of Concord Dawn absorbed elements of that world's traditions. Former journeyman protector Court Davin was particularly influential in this regard, passing on aspects of his own culture to the soldiers he trained. In this way, the clone commandos became far more than standardized copies of a single man. Though identical in origin, they were shaped by the diverse experiences and beliefs of the instructors who raised them. Not every trainer-student relationship ended in mutual respect, however. One Mandalorian instructor, regarded as one of the finest members of the Cuy'val Dar, took under his wing a clone who adopted the name Kadak, after the ancient Mandalorian destroyer god Cad Harangar. As the years passed, the relationship between the two deteriorated into a bitter rivalry. The tensions eventually erupted into violence, culminating in a confrontation in which Kadak killed his instructor with his bare hands. The incident shocked the training program. Kadak was immediately imprisoned by the Kaminoans and subjected to extensive testing and observation. Rumors later circulated that the clone had been terminated as a result of the killing. In reality, Kadak survived. He eventually escaped Kamino altogether and disappeared into the wider galaxy, later taking up residence on Ostor. The episode served as a stark reminder of something the Kaminoans had not fully anticipated. The clone commandos were engineered to be soldiers, but years spent under the guidance of the Cuy'val Dar had made them individuals as well. Their instructors had succeeded in teaching them how to think, adapt, and develop identities of their own, qualities that could inspire remarkable loyalty, but could also lead to conflict in ways no training program could entirely control.
Deployment.
After nearly a decade of secrecy, preparation, and isolation, the purpose for which the Cuy'val Dar had been assembled finally arrived. In 22 BBY, the Grand Army of the Republic was mobilized and deployed to Geonosis, where the opening battle of the Clone Wars transformed a hidden military project into the Republic's first line of defense. The speed of the deployment left little room for closure. Many of the Cuy'val Dar sergeants were unable to properly say goodbye to the commandos they had spent years training. Some of those clones would fall in battle before ever seeing their instructors again. The war had begun, and the army that had consumed a decade of the trainers' lives was suddenly gone, scattered across 1,000 battlefields. With their contracts fulfilled, most members of the Cuy'val Dar departed Kamino and returned to the lives they had abandoned years earlier, carrying with them substantial compensation for their service. For many, the chapter was closed. They had been recruited to build an army in secret, and with that army now at war, their task complete. Not everyone walked away. Kal Skirata, whose attachment to the clones extended far beyond professional obligation, negotiated a continuing role within the Republic military. Through agreements with Jedi Master Eric Hamas and later Jedi General Arlagan Zay, he became a military advisor to Special Operations Brigades, maintaining direct involvement with many of the commandos he had helped raise. Others sought a more active role in the conflict itself. One non-Mandalorian instructor, Kligson, had little interest in returning to civilian life while a galactic war raged. He enlisted in the Grand Army as one of the Republic's relatively rare non-clone officers and saw combat on worlds such as Sluis Van and Praesitlin. Even Walon Vau eventually returned to Republic service. By the second year of the war, the demanding Mandalorian instructor was once again working alongside the military establishment, participating in operations against Jabimi terrorists on Coruscant. As the conflict expanded and casualties mounted, the Republic increasingly turned to experienced veterans for assistance. Vau, along with fellow former instructors Mij Gilamar and Wade Tayahai, became involved in cross-training standard clone troopers in commando techniques, helping spread specialized skills throughout the growing army. The war's demands also drew several members of the Cuy'val Dar back to Kamino itself. As part of the enhanced training program instituted by the ARC Trooper Alpha 17, veteran instructors were once again tasked with shaping new generations of clone leaders. Their role was no longer limited to producing commandos. They now helped mold officers, commanders, and specialists who would lead troops across the Republic's expanding fronts. Court Davin used the opportunity to pass on the traditions of the Journeyman Protectors to Clone Commander Bakara of the Galactic Marines, instilling in him elements of the culture that had shaped Davin's own life. Mandalorian instructors likewise continued to influence notable clones, introducing clone Captain Rex to aspects of Mandalorian heritage and eventually granting him the honor of wearing Jag eyes upon his armor. Meanwhile, the Mandalorian huntress Vontae Tervo trained more than 1,000 future clone commanders in the use of dual DC-17 blaster pistols, ensuring that her expertise would echo across countless battlefields. In many ways, the Clone Wars marked the end of the original Cuy'val Dar. The 100 instructors who had vanished from the galaxy to create a secret army were no longer a single organization, but individuals pursuing separate paths. Yet, their influence remained visible throughout the Republic's military. Whether serving as advisors, returning as trainers, or fighting on the front lines themselves, former members of the Cuy'val Dar continued to shape the soldiers they had helped create, long after the first commandos marched off Kamino and into war.
Post-war.
For a number of former Cuy'val Dar trainers, the end of their Kamino contracts did not mark the end of their responsibility toward the clones. Years spent training and raising the commandos had forged bonds that many of them found impossible to abandon. What began as professional assignments gradually evolved into something far more personal, and a small group of Mandalorian instructors dedicated themselves to addressing a problem the Republic itself seemed willing to ignore: the accelerated aging built into every clone. At the center of this effort was Kal Skirata. Acting as the group's unofficial leader, Skirata worked alongside fellow former trainers Walon Vau and Rav Bralor in a determined search for a way to free the clones from the shortened lifespans engineered into them by the Kaminoans. Their pursuit led them to one of the architects of the cloning program itself, the Kaminoan scientist Ko-Sai. The group succeeded in abducting the former chief scientist and bringing her to Kyrimorut, Skirata's secluded refuge on Mandalore. The settlement, secured for him by Bralor, served not only as a hidden sanctuary, but also as a safe haven for clone deserters seeking lives beyond military service. Yet Ko-Sai proved unwilling to cooperate. Rather than submit to captivity, she took her own life, denying her captors the answers they sought. Her death, however, did not end the search. Drawing upon the research and data recovered before Ko-Sai's suicide, Mij Gilamar, both a physician and a veteran Cuy'val Dar instructor, continued the investigation. With assistance from the Null-class ARC troopers, Gilamar acquired additional information from sources including Arcanian microtechnologies, gradually assembling the knowledge necessary to continue the work. The breakthrough came when the group captured the separatist geneticist Ovalot Kale Yuuzhan and persuaded her to assist them. Through a combination of Kaminoan research, Arcanian data, and Yuuzhan's expertise, the project ultimately succeeded. A treatment capable of halting the clone's accelerated aging was developed and administered, achieving a goal that had motivated the former trainers for years. By the time their efforts bore fruit, however, the galaxy itself had changed. The Clone Wars ended not with a Republic victory, but with the Republic's transformation into the Galactic Empire under Emperor Palpatine. In the uncertain aftermath, Skirata, Gilamar, Vau, Bralor, and their former comrade Wade Tayehai spent much of their time at Kyrimorut, seeking to remain beyond the reach of Imperial authority. The refuge became a place where former soldiers, deserters, and allies could attempt to build lives separate from the new regime. Not every former member of the Cuy'val Dar chose the same course. While Skirata's circle distanced themselves from the Imperial influence, former Cuy'val Dar, Dread Priest, and Isabet Rao followed a different path. Both had become affiliated with the Renegade Deathwatch movement and aligned themselves with the Empire in support of Deathwatch leader Lorca Geddick's efforts to strengthen Mandalore through cooperation with Imperial power. The divide reflected how much the old training cadre had changed since the days of Kamino. Once united by a common mission, the former Cuy'val Dar were now scattered across opposing causes and competing visions for Mandalore's future. The split eventually turned deadly. After Priest's connections to Deathwatch became known, Mij Gilamar confronted and killed his former comrade in the Mandalorian capital of Keldabe. Welcome aboard the Millennial Falcon. This is Christian.
And this is Jordan.
We're currently admiring the stormy sea waters of Kamino, exploring the nooks and crannies of where the Republic military was created, and our topic of our missing peoples has taken us.
Yeah, and doing a bit of surfing while we're at it. But before we get into that, you guys know what time it is. We got to keep this bucket of bolts flying. So if you want to be a supporting member of the show, make sure to head on over to patreon.com/starlores. And for just $3 USDs a month, you can become a member, get access to all the bonus episodes. For $5 USDs a month, not only do you get bonus episodes, but ad-free episodes with no annoying ads. How about that? Good deal, right? So go ahead and do that. If you can't support us monetarily, there's other ways to help us out. You can absolutely give us a rating and review wherever you listen to podcasts. Apple and Spotify are the best ways to do that, but there's other platforms that I think have that option, so go ahead and do that. Also, share the show with anyone who you might think might like it. And guys, reach out to us on social media. We are on Instagram, Facebook, X. We're also on Discord. You can go to the link of this episode. We'll have sort of a link tree. You can click on there and find all the links to those good stuff and connect with us there. And reach out with any corrections, comments, ideas, things you want to say. And if we're feeling spiffy, we might throw that on the show. But if not, too bad. So... Better luck next time, friend. So, Christian.
Yes, sir.
The Cuy'val Dar.
Yeah, my Mandalorian is not great.
I practiced many different ways of saying this before I settled on one.
Yeah, before people jump down our throat, I think there's a couple of also planetary names and things that we have said in this episode that we may have butchered, and that's just the reality of Star Wars names.
I still get crap to this day from like saying Coruscant like 6 or 7 years ago on like our first episodes.
Yeah.
And there's just like a thing of like reading it and not like saying it naturally. You know, it just comes out that way. And I still get crap for that.
Yeah, we'll never. Star Wars names and pronunciation will be a never winning battle for us. So you get what you get. Exactly. We're doing the best we can here. Quickly before we get started, I just want to mention here that this is going to be a part 1 of part 2 episodes. So if you feel like we didn't encapsulate the topic in its fullest glory, that is because another episode will be coming shortly with the rest of the topic here.
Yeah, it ended up being like way longer than we expected. So we're like, okay, let's split this.
We had to split it up.
Yeah.
Sometimes we anticipate that ahead of time with like big characters like Anakin Skywalker is way too much to fit into one episode, but sometimes even we get caught off guard with how much information there is, which is never a bad thing, actually.
For sure.
Also, really quick, I just want to address a minor correction to our last episode, chronologically, or otherwise known as the Dark Acolytes episode. I do want to just quickly make a distinction between Dark Acolytes and Sith Acolytes. Dark Acolytes are like a subset of the Sith Acolytes as a whole, and I don't know in that episode how often we kind of use those terms interchangeably. If we want to get pedantic about it, is all I'm saying, is the Dark Acolytes under Dooku were like a more specific organization, not necessarily Sith, following in the path of Sith philosophy, whereas Sith acolytes oftentimes are actually like believers in Sith philosophy.
More religious Sith.
Yeah. So just wanted to...
I think we did address the difference between like dark Jedi and dark acolytes.
Yeah.
But not that distinction between Sith acolytes and dark acolytes. So.
And there's certainly an episode coming to about more Sith influence, and Sith acolytes will play into that, especially historically. Sith acolytes pop up here and there throughout Star Wars history. So just really wanted to come out and address that ahead of time before the hate mail starts us with that as well. All right, let's get back on topic here with the Cuy'val Dar. They're very interesting. I don't know what to call them. Like, I don't want to call them an organization, but for lack of a better word, team, group of
super
recruited.
group.
Yeah. Kind of reminds me a bit of the French Foreign Legion, actually.
Yeah, they strike me as like special forces, essentially, like highly trained, like, I don't know, Navy SEALs. I don't know what would be the SEAL Team 6.
But not that would be the operators, though. These are the trainers of the operators. So like
Right.
the commandos and the ARC troopers,
That's
if they
true,
train,
yeah.
will be those like tier 1 special forces units. But I think in the sense of the French Foreign Legion, the idea of like disappearing, the French Foreign Legion, when you show up there, you can show up, they check like what your background is, but for the most part, like if you have a criminal history or whatever, they don't care. They like write off your past, they change your name, and they take your passport, and like your former identity doesn't matter. It's often used as a way for people to escape like a past, right? Like if you got involved in some bad stuff and some people are after you and things like that, and you want to wait, like kind of a redemptive opportunity as like a last ditch effort, you can join the French Foreign Legion. And that idea of like kind of erasing your past. And a lot of these Mandalorians, and I guess Cuy'val Dar overall, because they weren't all Mandalorians, even though it does skew heavily to the Mandalorians, obviously both in the number and in the topic. Yeah, it's just an opportunity for them if they themselves, you know, they're desperate for credits, or you know, they're disappearing from the galaxy is what I'm trying to get at, right? Like their families don't even know what happened to them for 10 years. Like, can you imagine just disappearing tomorrow?
Yeah.
And everyone thinks you're dead, or like, what happened to him? Last I saw him, he went on this mission and he just never came back. And yeah, it just served as like an opportunity for those warriors to like find some kind of redemption arc. Obviously, they all of themselves, they weren't just like a random hodgepodge of people. Jango Fett had a short list of names that he wanted, that he knew to be like experienced and have all kinds of certain skills that he was looking to imbue in the soldiers. And overall, I think it's cool. It's cool to have like real world experience injected into these clones who are living in a very artificial environment, even in their training. So as a way of like training his soldiers, it's actually a pretty good technique. You can obviously see the influence too that they bring, like a lot of the individuality and culture that they imbue these clones with, that weren't part of the initial plan, right? Like the Kaminoans were just looking for a product, and like everyone's exactly the same, and like stamp out this product to go out. Whereas they started to inherit things like personalities and even like accents and culture that wasn't part of the plan, which is a cool little feature, I guess. Like I said, this episode does skew heavy Mandalorian. A lot of the content that is out there even skews heavily Mandalorian, which is why that is the case. A lot of this topic comes from the Republic Commando series, which is also skews heavily Mandalorian. Karen Travis is really liked Mandalorians, obviously, and she developed a lot of their culture and history and philosophy through her books, and that's where a lot of this comes from as well.
There's kind of this interesting angle where what better way to propagate Mandalorian culture than through the trainers and through like a cadre of trainers, right? Like these are going to be the indoctrinators of, though they're clones, and I guess they're technically not like, I guess ethnically Mandalorian, if that's even a thing. you can sort of shape them in your image and inculcate the Mandalorian ideals in a massive, very influential, perhaps for a period of time, the most powerful army in the whole galaxy.
Yeah, certainly. And there's a couple of factors to that play into that. One, Mandalorian culture, the way that it's set up, it has a strong adoption culture, which helps with that because then they can just adopt these, for lack of a better word, like foreign people into their culture and their ideals. So it's good to be adaptive that way. To be fair, Jango Fett is a Mandalorian as a template, but your culture is not genetic, obviously. So if they're being raised on Kamino in very austere scientific environment, they're not going to inherit Mandalorian tradition unless it's taught to them. Hence, this process.
Well, and also like sort of out of this was influential people in the I forgot that like extremist Mandalorian group,
Death Watch.
Yeah, the Death Watch. Like sort of there's those influences that kind of creeped in here too, which is interesting.
Yeah. I saw a video recently about how the Clone Wars was just an extension of the Mandalorian Civil War, which we will do our own episodes on too eventually.
Interesting.
Which is this divide between Death Watch and the super commando Mandalorians. Yeah. Or true Mandalorians that they'll call themselves. A couple other distinctions to make is historically on the timeline, the true Mandalorians would have been like Jango Fett would have been the last of the true Mandalorian super commandos. There were other Mandalorian clans and sub-factions distributed all around the galaxy, but this distinct subgroup was almost extinct. So to have this like opportunity to also suddenly teach Mandalorian culture and history to this multi-million clone force was also a great opportunity to try and inculcate a large number of people with this almost, I don't want to say it's dying culture because there were still other surviving groups, but greatly reduced culture.
Yeah, certainly not what they were at their zenith.
Yeah, exactly. And we'll get all into that in future episodes here because there is actually a lot to unpack with the whole Mandalorian Civil War and what all that means.
It's sort of like I think of, I don't know, like the Egyptians, right? Like the Egyptian society still exists, like some remnant, but it's nothing like what during the
age of the pyramids.
The age of the pharaohs and stuff. They were like a world global power back then, right?
Yeah, exactly. So you can see that like long decline from like the ancient Mandalorians who were like a galaxy level threat to like all these fractured clans, right? That are surviving out there in their own ways. But like I said, a lot of that will come out in our Death Watch versus True Mandalorians discussion. And again, important to note and relevant to this discussion is the fact that there are multiple sub-clans, sub-mercenary groups. Like Mandalorians were more than just those two factions, even though they may have been the largest or most influential. The True Mandalorians and the Death Watch. There are others, and that's where a lot of the Cuy'val Dar also come from, is these scattered clans. Because, like I said, Jango Fett's clan was reduced to just him. Another thing to note, getting away from the Mandalorian discussion, is that there were other trainers, too, that were brought into the Grand Army of the Republic, as exhibited during the Clone Wars animated series. We're introduced to two bounty hunters, Brick and LS, who are not Cuy'val Dar, and who seem to have been brought in as trainers after the Grand Army of the Republic deployed. So obviously now this whole operation is public. They can recruit new trainers and new influences to train the upcoming clone generations. This seems to be the case with these two trainers who feature in this episode, training new clone cadets. And of course, their own personalities and influences also be reflected in that. And I am sure there's more than just those two. So, likely there are a good number of non-Mandalorian influences that probably crept in, and even Jedi influences too. The Jedi start to get involved with like the production of the clones, at least in their training and upbringing and things. So,
I don't know if you came across it in your research, or maybe I wasn't paying close enough attention. But was there like a particular reason why Jango Fett wanted, 100 trainer, like why did he pick this number? Is it just arbitrary, or is there any explanation?
Yeah, I don't know that the reason for the number was given. Could just be that the limitation of resources. Each of the Cuy'val Dar are paid very well.
Mm-hmm.
So one is limitation of finances. Two would be like the number of talented individuals that he would trust with such a task. And three, like, again, talking about the Mandalorians being in this like reduced state, are there enough of them around to be able to recruit and afford to disappear from the galaxy for 10 years?
Right.
But no, I don't think an explicit reason is given. If you consider that they're only training the special forces elements of the Grand Army of the Republic, at least initially. Later on, they start to train the regular clones as well, especially the commander classes. And then you have clones that also become experienced and then reinvest their training back into the upcoming generations as well. Your cadre of instructors is growing as the war progresses. But the limited number of special forces units in the initial training batch also probably has something to do with the number of selected trainers.
Yeah.
Why are you thinking that's too low?
No.
Okay.
I was just sort of curious. I mean, I could see it like they're. I could totally see that. Like if you're training highly specialized people, even 100 might be too high for all we know. I don't know, but it's hard to say. But
and I'm just inferring a lot of this from like just putting together the pieces. Like Jango Fett doesn't up and say explicitly why.
Well, I was wondering if maybe there was some sort of like Mandalorian convention or something like that, or tradition that you have,
dictates a number.
Yeah.
No.
I don't know.
No. And there were only 75 Mandalorians of the 100, so that means there's 25 non-Mandalorian instructors, including we know of at least one Corellian and one other one that we'll discuss in the next episode here. How Jango thought of this whole like clone army project. Jango is the default, I guess, Mandalore as the last remaining true Mandalorian. And obviously his ideals of raising a son and having Boba Fett as an unaltered clone to pass on that Mandalorian tradition to, those elements are in the back of his mind at the very least. So whether or not it was intentional that they would also, through his recruitment of these 75 Mandalorian instructors, would also propagate Mandalorian culture and history. I don't know if that was intentional or not on his part, and how Jango kind of viewed his own clones, as whether or not he saw them as extensions of Mandalorians or not. I'll have to do more research on that one. I know it's a topic that has floated back and forth. Some people believe that Jango saw the clones strictly as a product, and he didn't. That's why he made Boba Fett as an exception to the rule. Like he's a true Mandalorian, the rest of these guys are not. Mm-hmm. Versus, he sees them all as an opportunity to carry on Jaster's legacy and the legacy of the true Mandalorians. So probably a topic we'll touch on again in the future.
Fair enough. Shall we jump into some mailbag?
Yeah.
All right. So we just poking around, got some comments, things in the Discord. One person in the Discord is named Bango. He said he was getting caught up on some episodes, and he listened to our Return of the Jedi review. Yeah. And it is his opinion, and you guys can let us know how you feel about this. And he added, no, during the throne room scene was arguably the worst change Lucas made. And I say that knowing the whole Jabba in Docking Bay 94 scene exists. So what say you, Christian? Is Lucas introducing the throne room scene? I'm guessing the fight in the throne room?
It's that scene in the throne room where the Emperor's electrocuting Luke, and Vader in the original cut is looking back and forth, kind of like weighing his options. Like, do I help my son? Do I overthrow the Emperor?
Okay.
And then in the later dub, they dub it in him going, no.
Yeah.
That was awful. Honestly, I don't know. This seems to be an ongoing issue with cinema. I think they're dumbing things down for people to the point that like the visual medium doesn't even tell the story anymore. They have to like reiterate and explicitly tell the audience what's happening without like relying on visual cues. Because like even wearing the mask, it's very obvious that Vader is balancing his options right before him, right? He sees his son getting electrocuted. He sees the Emperor. He's like, what side am I going to choose? Even him looking back and forth is a very visible telegraph of like, okay,
very
he's not sure what he's going to do. Right, exactly. So yeah, just it just feels like a slap in the face and really is just dumb for him to say that.
It's true. Was there a cut that didn't have that?
Yeah, the original cut.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So when was this new cut added? Like in the special edition?
It would have been after.
Or was it like like the VHS release or something?
No. It was later.
Okay.
I haven't seen all the cuts. I've seen some YouTube like overlays where they do like 4 cuts side by side with the same scenes, and you can really see the differences. I don't remember when this was added, but this was a later edition. Like I grew up on the special editions on VHS, and it definitely wasn't in there. Yeah, so it would have been post.
I've got to go back and look at this now because I kind of don't remember that scene that described that way.
No, it wasn't. Like it would have been post. So it could have been like, and I can't remember all the editions that have come out since. They did another like
how many people have even seen this new iteration?
So I don't know what's being presented on Disney Plus either, right? Because anyone who grew up with like the originals or who have hard copies of the VHS or DVDs,
right?
That's a version they're going to go to. That's a version I go to. But future generations, when they pull up The Return of the Jedi, is that the version that they're going to be?
Yeah, the streaming version.
Right.
We're going to have to go and look at this.
Yeah, so Disney Plus is not my preferred method of consuming Star Wars, so I can't speak to what the current version is there. But yeah, really quick shout out to his mention of the Docking Bay 94 scene with Jabba. For those unfamiliar, I believe he's referencing the scene that they initially shot with a human actor playing Jabba.
Yes,
and then
it's like a CGI
version, which is it's a bit rough.
Yeah,
I don't personally hate that scene, but again, that's a scene I grew up with. That was always there, but that scene was eliminated from the original cut.
Right? Yeah. It was added on the special edition. I believe. Yeah.
And there's a whole thing about Han Solo walking around the human actor, but because Jabba has a tail, they had to like shift Han as if he steps on his tail. It's interesting, but again, I grew up on it, so I can't complain.
Okay, we got a Spotify commenter who has made a few comments about this. Please do an Obi-Wan episode. And I was looking back, and we actually have not done an Obi-Wan episode, which seems crazy.
Yeah, it's something
like a specifically dedicated Obi-Wan.
It's been hounding me, honestly. I feel bad about it, but at the same time, I'm in too deep to go back.
The problem is we get too stuck on these Clone Wars era episodes. Which
that's not a problem. I just because I personally
and Obi-Wan is featured heavily in the Clone Wars.
Yeah, but I want to start Obi-Wan's story to pre-Clone Wars.
Yeah, of course.
Obviously, you want to start with him as a Padawan.
Yeah.
We did Qui-Gon, and it was my intention way back when we did our Qui-Gon episode to do an Obi-Wan shortly after, and then I just got sidetracked with other topics. He's certainly on the to-do list for sure. There's so many topics to cover with Star Wars, but it is coming. It will probably be a multi-part episode, like we said, even with this one. There's gonna be a lot of content to cover.
One episode. No way.
And Obi-Wan too just covers such a broad, like you're going from pre-Clone Wars, pre-Episode 1, all the way to A New Hope. That's a huge amount of time to cover.
Yeah.
Also, the Obi-Wan TV show just really put a damper on my my desire to write that.
Uninspired you? That's a word.
Actually, de-inspired me. Yeah. But it's coming. It's coming.
Yeah.
If there's any other big specialty names and topics, I mean, there's a lot we haven't covered yet that we still need to.
Yeah, definitely got to do some Obi-Wan. We should do some more pre-Clone like stuff leading up to the Clone Wars episodes.
Yeah,
that'd be kind of cool.
Yeah. Oh, we'll go back.
I don't think we've done a ton of those, but
we're going back on the timeline again.
Yeah,
we just have to move forward before we can go back again. So,
okay. We got one more here. This is from Darth Dama on Discord. First, he said, "First, love your podcast. Just listened to your episode 123, Spooky Species, and just wanted to add another source for Anzadi. Since the human with the hookah is also in the novel Stories from Mos Eisley Cantina, and is also specified to be an Anzat, so all 4 was in the cantina." So can you just set up some context for what he's referencing?
Yeah. In that episode, Spooky Species, we covered a number of Star Wars aliens who had some kind of like connection to something Halloween-y or spooky looking. And we said in that episode that 3 of the 4 species featured in the cantina scene on Mos Eisley. And we kind of were joking around about like where the costuming came from, right? Like obviously Halloween is a big costume season. So like there you go. You got lots of aliens right there. What we didn't know though, and that what Darth Dama is pointing out, is that in the novelization, that one of the characters in the cantina scene is specified to be an Anzat, which was one of the ones that was missing from that scene. Yeah. So they were all in the Mos Eisley cantina.
There you go.
So thank you for that, Darth Dama.
Yeah, thanks for, I guess, a correction on there, but an interesting one. We always enjoy those like really deep cuts.
And the fact that someone like remembers that and is like, actually,
from this book, which is kind of more obscure.
Yeah, I haven't read all the novelizations. However, I heard Revenge of the Sith novelization is worth reading.
Yeah, for
it's
sure.
Actually, like, it expounds on a lot of things.
Yeah, but I've heard that as well.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know. Anything else you wanted to add there, Christian?
No, definitely we'll be returning to this topic not only in our part 2, but future Mandalorian Civil War type episodes. You'll hear a lot of these things pop back up. So just kind of save this episode as a reference point for future episodes.
For sure. And everyone, don't forget to check us out on Instagram, Facebook, X, and Discord. Also, make sure to leave a 5-star rating and review. And if you want to be a supporting member, you can go to patreon.com/starlores and support the show there. We also accept PayPal, Bitcoin, that kind of thing. We sell a little bit of merch. You can find that all in the links of the description of this episode. And with that, we shall see you next time.